for March 9th, 2022. Ms. Covray, may I please get members present?
Manufo Leah Inga Anuai is absent. Marie Brizuela is absent. Shakil Ali,
Here.
Andrea Jordan,
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Valenti, could you just lead us tonight's pledge?
Please rise to face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Begin.
Thank you. Next is the governance team meeting guidelines. Governance team members will review the governance team meeting guidelines. Next is the approval of tonight's agenda.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next is 6A, communications, board member acknowledgement and commendations. No. Okay, cool. I don't have much to say. Just want to hope everybody stays safe and healthy. Happy spring as we come up actually next month as well too. Yeah, that's it. Next is 6B, superintendent comments.
Yeah, I have a couple. If, Ms. Scott, if you'd move to my first slide, please. So next Monday, the California Department of Public Health, San Mateo County Health will shift their mask in schools policy. We created this infographic. I borrowed it from one of our school sites who used something similar to help our families understand the continuum of different mask policies. We were on the far left. We've been there since all of last year and all of this year up until now. And we're moving one bracket to the right, to the strongly recommended one. Essentially, strongly recommended means that everyone should continue wearing masks. It's just the state or the district is not telling you to wear it. You're deciding to wear it. Sort of like on a rainy day or even tonight, on a cold night, you bring your jacket, and I didn't listen. So I got very cold on the way in. But it is that kind of philosophy of shifting the decision-making away from a government entity and onto individuals. And then also there's a picture of where county health and California Department of Public Health might move in the future if conditions continue to improve. Or they've also signaled that they may move to the left. We may go back to a mask mandate if conditions get to the point where one is required. So we're sending that out. I think it should have gone out tonight to our families, and we'll just keep encouraging families to wear their masks and students to wear their masks. It is in the Bay Area. It's one of the safest places in California not to wear a mask. But the state of California, as all states, is looking at their states as a whole. And so that's why California is still in the strongly recommended. There are still many parts of our state where COVID is very active. Bay Area is not one of them. We're in one of the low-risk communities in San Mateo County and San Francisco County. So, just like, I spoke about the weather and the importance of paying attention to conditions with what you're going to wear, like a mask. We also have different layers of protection, right? In the Bay Area, we're very familiar with always keep a jacket in your trunk because you never know when you're going to need it. So we also are emphasizing vaccination. You want to move to that? The county health department has now established a standing vaccination clinic once a week in Daly City. So we can let families know about that. Of course, they register through My Turn, but they will take a couple of walk-ins every Sunday, so middle of the day. There's also one in South City, and I have sent that out to families tonight as well. That's on a Thursday evening. So that's That's enough for me today. Also, we'll emphasize this later, but we got another shipment of home test kits for students that we'll be passing out before we leave for spring break. Students and staff each get a kit, and they can take it on the day before they return. So, thank you.
Cool, thank you. Next is item 7A, consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the started items on the rest of tonight's agenda.
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
First and second, may I please get a roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye. That was unanimous. Next is item 7D, resolution number 22-03-09B to excuse Shaquille Ali from special board meeting on February 28th, 2022. Pursuant to Education Code 35-129C, the board will consider a request for passage of a resolution to excuse Shaquille Ali's absence on February 28th, 2022 due to hardship.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next is item 7E, resolution number 22-03-09C to excuse Andrea Jordan from special board meeting on March 1st, 2022. Pursuant to Education Code 35-129C, the board will consider a request for the passage of a resolution to excuse Andrea Jordan's absence on March 1st, 2022 due to hardship.
I move that we approve resolution number 22-03-09C.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Next is item 7F, 2022 CSBA Delegate Assembly Election. The board will select up to 3 candidates who could be considered as delegates to the CSBA Delegate Assembly. Mr. Vidalis, could you speak on this item?
Sure, you'll have to help me a bit here. So we have 4 candidates who are running for delegate assembly. One of them is our own Mr. Koo. And the other one that I can remember off the top of my head is Ms. Noelia Corzo from San Mateo Foster City School District. Who are the 3rd and 4th ones, Mr. Koo?
It is Sophia Lane from Cabrillo, I believe Cabrillo Unified, and then Pat Murray from South San Francisco Unified.
Okay. So you have all of their information as a backup there and the qualifications. And our district gets to vote for 3, and then we send our vote up to Sacramento so they can tally all the votes. In the past, we've done it both ways. We've gone one at a time. We've also just voted for 3 all at once. So it's up to the board to discuss.
I was going to say that I've worked with Ms. Corzo and Ms. Lane, and they've been great delegates to work with so far. So I was going to suggest if nobody had any thoughts, I was going to just vote for the 3 incumbents again for delegate.
So the 3 incumbents are Ms. Corzo and
Ms. Lane and then
Ms.
myself.
Lane. Okay. And yourself. Okay.
Second.
I agree. I know Ms. Corzo and obviously Trustee Koo here. I'm not familiar with Ms. Lane, but I do trust my fellow trustees, so I agree with those options.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. So, Mr. Koo, do you want to call for a vote?
Sure. So first by me, second by Trustee Ali. All those in favor of, please say aye.
Aye.
Cool. That was unanimous. Next is item 7I, District Calendar 2022-2023. The administration recommends approval of the district calendar for school year 2022-2023. This calendar has been determined as part of the district calendar committee process and is in alignment with the Jefferson Union High School district calendar for 2022 to 2023.
Yeah, the only feature here to discuss after the high school district changed their winter break to be the last week in December and the first week in January, we are going to adopt the same schedule. And that affords us a possibility, and hopefully not a likely possibility, that should there be another wave of COVID infections resulting from the holiday break, that we'd have that week to get ready for responding.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to comment that I'm glad that we're making sure that we're doing it in conjunction with the high school district. I know there are a lot of people that have children in both districts, and that could create a hardship for them. So I make a motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next is item 7K, Personnel Commission's 2021 Annual Report. Education Code Section 45266 requires an annual report to be prepared and forwarded to the governing board outlining Personnel Commission activities. The 2021 annual report has been reviewed and approved by the Personnel Commission and is submitted for the board's information. I will pass it, I believe, to Mr. Valenti.
Mind if I go up here to the podium? It just seems more natural.
You'll just need to signal to Ms. Scott when you need her to advance the slide.
Okay, I'll give you the eye. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight and give me an opportunity to talk about our Personnel Commission's annual report, just to give you some of the highlights that have transpired over the year. And it was what a year it was. To begin with, I'd like to introduce our Personnel Commissioners that are here to join us tonight. We have Mr. Wallace Moore, who was appointed initially by the Board of Trustees March 27th, 2019, and reappointed recently on November 30th. Mr. Moore is right here. We have Ms. Reyes, who was appointed by the two fellow commissioners from our commission, and her term of office shall expire on November 30th, 2022. Thank you. And of course, Mr. Dennis Shreve, who is appointed by the classified union CSCA. He was reappointed recently to the commission on November 30th through November 30th, 2023. So just as before I get into the general presentation, some of the focus I want to put out there is that the guidelines of the Personnel Commission are really to focus on hiring and promoting employees on the basis of ability, with open competition and testing. Training our employees is needed for the high quality performance, retaining employees on the basis of performance, providing fair compensation for our classified staff, and assuring fair treatment of our applicants and employees in all aspects of their position. We have some goals to go over that we've been reviewing this year with our commissioners. First is maintaining efficient Personnel Commission operations. One of the main things was to transition to online Personnel Commission meetings during COVID. It was the first time we had virtual meetings ourselves. It was sort of one of those things we needed to take care of. But we've also expanded it to oral panels and placement interviews, which has really helped facilitate those meetings when we were not able to meet in person. We've also fully implemented electronic processing of new employees and substitutes for onboarding. That was something we didn't have just even, I think, 2 years ago. We've worked to also modify our office procedures as appropriate to accommodate remote working arrangements over last year when we were on virtual instruction, as well as continuing with some of those folks that work with our students that are not able to come in person and working on our independent study or at home. And just the expansion of electronic recruitment and application platforms such as EdJoin in order to recruit our staff members. For classified staff development, working with our partners in CSCA to expand professional development opportunities and offering career advancement and guidance support for individuals. We have quite a few of our folks that are looking into teaching positions, and some of our folks who might have already had their bachelor's degrees that might be looking into the credential programs, especially in special education, mathematics, science, working with them for some of our tuition reimbursement programs. This year, our classified classified staff had professional opportunity development in safety and illness prevention, mindfulness, professional behavior in the workplace, our child abuse reporting procedures, as well as learning instructional strategies for English learners or students with special needs, students that have improving their positive behavior classroom management strategies, as well as de-escalation strategies for some of our students in those classrooms. One of our goals, of course, is to maintain recruitment and selection systems based on our merit principles. Our district, as a merit district, we qualify applications, we test applicants, get them on eligibility lists. So really working with San Mateo County Office of Ed and other districts to update our candidate selection resources. And as I mentioned earlier, expanding the use of onboarding electronically, where we can just send an email to a potential candidate at home and they can do a lot of the initial onboarding from home. Another goal, coordinating and monitoring the employment performance or evaluation. We did put out there an optional evaluation, self-evaluation procedure for staff, should they desire to do that. We haven't had many takers. It doesn't supplant our general annual evaluation process, but it was something we did negotiate with our union. And also collaborating with our site supervisors and CSCA to support classified employees requiring performance assistance, whether that be through professional development or working with other staff members that can provide that support, and also supporting our new classified employees with appropriate professional development. This year we wanted to review, it was a goal from year past, but to review and revise at least one section of our rules and regulations of the Personnel Commission, which is another one of our, it's not the contract, but it has the rules as we to lay out how we operate. Improving our lines of communication with staff to regularly inform site and staff district administrators of pertinent information discussed at the commission meetings, which happen every second Tuesday here at our district office. My role to attend all Board of Education meetings to coordinate any board or personnel commission functions. Recently, we looked at updating a job description, a classified job description. And then we always have an annual visit of 3 schools. I believe this year we're going to Thomas Edison, Daniel Webster, and MP Brown, I believe is the next school, at the end of March. Another area that we're working on is focusing on getting monthly meetings with our CSCA president. That has not been something that's been fully implemented. I do meet with the union president quite regularly, but it isn't something that I fully took care of last year. So that's something I want to, moving forward, develop. And just receiving and reviewing regular updates on our classified negotiations. Mr. Laro is the lead negotiator for classified. I do sit in on those negotiations, of course, but just making sure that merit system rules and regulations are followed. So a few more goals, and then I can open it up to questions. Our maintaining an effective classification plan, which includes monitoring compliance with the Personnel Commission classification plan and compensation study, and the application of rules and regulations in a fair and consistent and uniform manner, and meet if needed jointly with the governing board. We did that, I believe it was 2 years ago, and that was a successful meeting as well. It might be something we do in the future. Some of the highlights I do want to put out there, and it sort of stood out a lot, I guess, when I was really putting it together. In terms of, we did do 18 job announcements that were posted. That's up from 14 from last year. We had 17 eligibility lists established. That was up from 9 from last year. We had 16 regular appointments, up from 5 from last year. And then 24 classified staff working in our summer schools, 6 classified employees were promoted, 10 employees working out of classification to cover leaves. There has been an increase of leaves, or there were an increase of leaves last year. We did have 9 employees retire and 20 employees resign. So this year, last year, we did have a really busy year transitioning out of 100% virtual instruction into where we are today. So I think there's a few more slides. All right. And then we also like to put out there a thank you to all the different people that help us out. Unlike certificated personnel, classified personnel, we have to the extent possible, get outside folks to help us out on interviews, to review documents in order to make sure that we follow our merit district rules. So these are some of the folks, this page and then the next page as well. Please. I think that's it. All right. And you also have in your packet the report that was approved by the commissioners at our last meeting. And if there's any questions that I can answer or field, I'm happy to do that.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions from board members or comments?
I actually have a question about the 10 employees that worked outside of their classification. How were they compensated for the time frame that they were working out of class?
Sure. So folks that work out of classification per the contract and of course the rules are that if they work 3 or more days, they get the higher rate. So if they're working, it's either the rate that they're working in the out of class or 5% higher than whatever it is they are earning. So they always get the higher rate. Now, some folks do work like an hour here, an hour there, extra work. That's not necessarily considered out of class.
Perfect. That
Thank
makes
you.
sense.
Sure.
So you mentioned there was a slight barrier to communication with the CSCA president. What do you think the challenge is?
I guess, I don't know if barrier would be necessarily the word I choose as much as, and no, I get what you mean though. We just haven't set up our regular meeting and stuck to it. Where we had that more as a practice with AFT, that was something that I did regularly. Now, Mr. Cole and I speak quite frequently. It's just having a regular standing meeting, and I think it's been more just dealing with some of the things we've had to deal with recently. I don't have one specific item that I can pin it on, but I don't want it to make it appear as if we're not communicating a lot, because we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. And then just as far as the professional development, were the classified employees able to give suggestions or, topics that they wanted to, learn?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There were surveys put out to all staff about it. There's been more site-based professional development they've participated in recently when we had I believe it was January 10th. Is that what it was? January 10th professional development. There was a focus on some of the annual things like first aid and CPR and things that needed to be taken care of. Also, the special ed department provided supports for SKIAs and special education aids. So that a lot of that input did come from classified, but it was more of just putting it out as a survey and also speaking with the CSCA representation.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you.
I actually have a follow-up
Sure.
question to the professional development. It says, obviously, they had opportunities, so they weren't required to do it. What was the percentage of engagement?
So some of the things they were required to do, some of the initial trainings that were listed there, that are just part of the annual trainings we all participate in, as well as the activities on March 10th. In terms of participation, I don't have that number in front of me right now. I could get that to you. I certainly the ones that are mandatory, they're going to attend. I think offering folks the opportunity to do some of that professional development at the school site with the certificated staff, which generally takes place from 3 to 4 when they're off on a timesheet, has been something that's been going on at the school site, as well as offering them other opportunities to support students through our learning loss mitigation funds and things of that nature.
Thank you. If possible, I would like to see those numbers. I would also like to know of the ones that were not mandatory so that I can understand
Sure.
what the difference is. Thank you.
You got it. All right.
Any other questions? No? Just want to say thank you, Ms. Valenci,
No,
as
thank
well
you
as
all.
Ms. Reyes, Mr. Shreve, and Mr. Moore for your time on the commission as well, too.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.
Next item is item 8C, Expanded Learning Opportunity Plan Phase 1. The administration recommends acceptance of the Extended Learning Opportunity Plan, Phase 1 of the Jefferson Elementary School District's Expanded Learning Opportunity Plan. ELOP is inclusive of an after-school program at Thomas Edison and a summer program for all qualified JESD students, rising 4th to rising 8th grade. Ms. Scott?
I can speak a little bit to it. So the ELOP, not to be confused with ELOG, they like the same words, is a program that's been established with the ultimate goal of creating a seamless 9-hour day in the public school setting. We have 2 years to ramp up before in year 3, we're supposed to be pretty close to where we want to be. So for this spring, what we decided was to select one of the school sites that didn't have a broad after-school program and partner with an outside agency, which is the next item, the Ymca, to establish a 3-hour after-school program. So Thomas Edison is not one of our ACES sites and does not have an after-school program. Another requirement of the ELOP is that at least 50% of the participants in the program need to be unduplicated students, which are students who would qualify for free and reduced lunch, students who are English learners, students who are homeless, students who are foster youth. So at least half, and we would hope more, of the students that get to participate in this need to fall into that category. And it is another characteristic, at least that we're going to try to keep, is to keep it free for 100% of the participants. We do have the option to charge, especially students who are not unduplicated. But we would like to, depending on what the economics of the situation are, we would like to keep it free for every participant. And another feature of the program is that it is, unlike the ACES program, there is an opportunity for parents to pick up at 5 or 4:30, but you have the option to stay until 6 if that's what you need. So those are some characteristics. And so we're going to try it at Thomas Edison to experiment both with the new partner as well as a school that didn't have an after-school program. Phase 2 is going to include expanding our ACES offerings at the school sites who have ACES. Our ACES partner hasn't been able to recruit enough staff to even meet to their contract for this year, but our hope is that they will, and we can serve 100 to 150 students at ACES schools to expand that as well. And then there's other sites who have smaller programs that we would like to help expand as well. So the summer program is one that we've done in the past, and we want to just, we lost the funding that paid for it in the past, and so the ELOP now says that we need to provide a summer program for, Ms. LaRock, how many days? Is it a 30-day, 30 days in the summer? Yeah, 30 days in the summer. So a 6-week summer program. And we're sort of experimenting with what that might look like. It's a long time, it's 36 weeks. So we want to see what that could look like this summer. So we can have it up and running by next summer. And Ms. LaRock is helping to oversee this. So if we have any detailed questions, she can help with that.
Thank you. Any questions?
So my question about the YMCA, so it's only going to start at Thomas Edison? It's not going to be at the other middle schools? So the other middle schools have ACEs?
Ben Franklin and TR Policita have ACES programming. Fernando Rivera has a partnership with another after-school program. I don't know who it is off the top of my head. No. Do you know? Who? No. Yeah, anyway, it's another organization that does their after-school program.
Okay. I had the same question because I do see Policitas on here as a selected site. Was that an error or?
No, well, that's for the summer programming.
Got it. Okay,
So
the
we're
summer
doing
program is
4th through 8th
separate.
grade, yeah.
Got it. Okay, and then I had a question about, you said the free and reduced lunch in terms of how do we, are we expecting that the people would have filled out that application? Are we going to ask them to refill out if they're asking to join the program? How is that being?
So we do have there, because right now we have universal lunch offerings, you don't need to fill that out to get a free lunch, but we do have the alternative income verification form. So we would link that form to be part of the application for attending the after-school program.
Perfect. And I asked that because I know people aren't filling them out because it's not required. And I just want to make sure that if we're saying that it has to be 50%, then making sure that we do have a way of actually.
Yeah, and so we actually did much better than we anticipated in terms of who was filling it out. We didn't drop that dramatically like we feared we might drop, so.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the expanded learning opportunity plan phase 1.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous.
So that was phase 1, so you will see a phase 2 as we explore what it looks like in the fall, expanding.
Thank you. Next item is item 8D, contracted services with YMCA. The administration recommends acceptance of a contract for $131,454.71 with the YMCA. In partnership with the SF YMCA, JESD will host up to 40 students in an engaging after-school program free of charge to families, thanks to the Extended Learning Opportunity Program grant. In accordance with the ELOP framework, SF YMCA will offer enrichment and academic support, as well as organize outdoor time. Families have the flexibility to pick up any time between 3 o'clock and 5:30 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, so this was the contract that's associated with the previous item.
I move that we approve the contract with the YMCA for $131,454.71.
Second.
There is a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Next is item 8E, Student Services Update on Mental Health. Ms. Stephanie Martinez, Student Services Program Director, along with school counselors, will present an update on tiered support for mental health and social emotional services throughout the school communities. Hello, Ms. Martinez. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Good to see you guys. It's been a while. I have some special guests with me today. I'll just have them introduce themselves quickly. But I'm Stephanie Martinez, the Program Director of Student Services for our district office.
My name's Arthur Melendez. I'm the school counselor at JFK and Woodrow Wilson.
My name is Jamie Maciel, and I'm the school counselor at George Washington, and I've been doing school counselor coverage at MH Tobias.
Thanks for hosting us tonight. In receiving your request to get an update on mental health, there's a lot of updates that we have, but we really tried to narrow it down and be concise about what's going on in our district. But I feel like we had a good foundation in our department and established in our school systems. We've been a district that's been implementing PBIS for quite some time. And through that framework, you have to assess what your resources are, what your student needs are based off of student feedback, teacher referrals, and just a pulse of the community. So it really did prepare us in looking at a tiered system of support for mental health services as we came back from a pandemic. Not seeing kids as much as we used to, not having the types of sessions that we used to have with that interpersonal and in-person connections. A lot of the things that we were wondering about were unknown. And so it was really helpful to think about it in a systemic way and know that we are equipped and we do know how to address large scale needs and also small group and individualized needs. So just a refresher, that's how we took on the task of our returning school year and how we looked at mental health services across the school district. Thank you, Pam. Another shift that I feel like is really important to highlight is our district has embarked on adopting a different model of school counseling programs. You'll often see a lot of counseling programs functioning in a responsive way, which is they receive and respond as things come. We've been making a shift for about 5 years. I would say the last 2 have been rough because we've been also shifting to the other types of ways in which we function in the school building. But this shift of thinking about tiers, thinking about we serve all students, it helped our mindset in thinking about the needs that were coming back into the building, right? It didn't seem so overwhelming when we were thinking about thousands of kids and serving them. It seemed like this is what we do, this is what we're used to doing, and we haven't been able to do it while we've been on distance learning. So that was another shift. So not just PBIS and that systemic approach, but also the way the department's been moving towards addressing student needs, doing more proactive responses and preventative responses to the students' needs. So just wanted to highlight that. I feel like that gave us a really great foundation into moving forward into what we actually did, which I'm going to let the counselors talk about it a little bit more. Jamie's going to go a little more in depth about some of the shifts in the counseling program, and then Arthur's going to wrap us up with the tiered services that we wanted to highlight tonight.
So first, looking at our caseloads across the district, and as you can see on the previous slide, the California recommendation for ASCA is about 1 to 570 for students for a ratio for counselors. And as you can see, we are definitely in line with that. We do have some larger caseloads for our counselors who are split between 2 different sites, and that's where those bottom 2 rows come in, where we have the additional services that are coordinated. We have clinicians through things like grant funds and Medi-Cal and site funds as well, in order to support those counselors and those students at those sites who do have the larger caseloads since they are split. And then more looking at how we look at what a school counselor is and what we do. So one big thing is the shift with just the name going from a guidance counselor to a school counselor. And some of the ones that I want to really pinpoint on here is the collaborating with all stakeholders. So even us standing here and speaking with you all, being able to work with parents, with admin, working with counselors at other schools as well in our district, and collaborating with people within San Mateo County and not just JESD as well. Another thing to highlight is the proactive and preventative counseling. Stephanie, you kind of mentioned that earlier, where we're not just responding to what is happening, but we're doing things that are proactive and preventative, especially coming from a pandemic and especially in the midst of the pandemic as well, being able to give our students those basic skills to be able to come out of this and to work through this together. And another one looking at is the serving of all students. We're going to go into more depth about those tiered supports and how we try our best to meet the needs of all students and not just some students that might be more high risk or might be coming to us for referrals, but really making sure that those students whose maybe names aren't coming up in the classroom or aren't coming up in conferences, their needs are also being met. So looking at our tiered services, so looking first at tier 1 services. So that's the tier that's hitting all of our students. And the main kind of grasp of that is really looking at how we deliver curriculum. And we try across our district to have a core curriculum where all students in our district are getting these similar topics being taught to them. Things like emotion regulation, growth mindset, digital citizenship, and then counselors also being able to take those core items and then build upon them as well, and seeing where the need is and then being able to address it with a certain lesson. And in order to do that, we do use more of a blended curriculum. At the elementary level, we have Kamochi's curriculum. And then middle school, it's really a blend of different things that we put together and that we're able to use to meet the needs of our specific schools. Another one, of course, being our PBIS and what that looks like school-based, and that is more of a reward system that does hit our whole student body. And then Arthur's going to talk more about the tier 2 and tier 3, specifically having to do also with our families and what that looks like.
So tier 2, we have small group counseling services. It's just more for a targeted group through the school. Some of the topics that we focus on with these groups are social skills, emotional regulation, growth mindset, and then we have programs that help us facilitate and follow up with these skills that we're teaching, like the Soul Shop Peacemaker program, check-in, check-out programs, and we've also put together, partnered with Samtrans Bus to create a program and offer bus passes to 2,500 students, K through 8. And then we have additional mental health services and organizations that we work with, like Care Solace, Daly City Youth Health Center, our second home in Star Vista. One of the things we'd like to highlight that we offer to parents are the family cafes that are facilitated by our Star Vista liaisons that help the district. And tier 3 being more targeted or individual counseling services for our higher needs students. This can include restorative circles, wraparound services, home visits, and utilizing the partnerships that we have, again, with Care Solace and the organizations that you see there. And for parents and guardians, we have the family cafes, again, food resources available, as well as mental health resources.
So we're really to the point. Thank you for bringing us out tonight. We really do appreciate the time, and the department's been working very, very hard, and so I'm so grateful that we have them, and I'm happy that you got to meet them in person. But we couldn't have done it together. I mean, without each other. We couldn't have done it without each other. Yeah, I know, right? So I'm very grateful for all the partnerships that exist within Daly City, but also within our district, to make us able to do our job and able to keep up with the trends and the needs. And just really proud of the team and how hard they work. So thank you.
Cool, thank you. Any questions, comments from board members?
Well, I do want to echo, just saying thank you for being here. We actually had been discussing mental health in a couple of sessions that we had, and so it's really helpful to hear what's happening. I would like to ask a couple questions around, I know with the pandemic and people coming back, how have our students been? How have we, well, grateful that we're being proactive. So obviously you were prepared for what you were walking into. But I want to ask the hard question. I mean, what did that look like when they came back, especially for, I would say, the very young children who had maybe not even experienced being in a school setting, that were just used to being online, so even the social emotional skills weren't probably there for them. And then for, let's say, our middle schoolers who had, maybe the ones that went from elementary school during the pandemic, and then now they're in this larger pool. Like, what did that look like, and how did we support them? Because again, it's more of a transition of mind versus the physical. I mean, it's both, but to see that in person, I'm sure there were a bit of struggles there.
Yeah, I can have you guys share a bit. I feel like for me at the district level, it's busy. We're very busy, but I know our students are resilient, and so I always had that in my mind in the forefront, right? But of course, having so much autonomy at home with learning and attending class and getting ready and for school, all of those things a lot of our students kind of did with some guidance or some monitoring, but minimal, and some none at all. So that was a transition, right, within itself. And just like you said, some of those major ways in which we support with that warm handoff from younger grade levels to upper and then upper to middle didn't happen, right? So we definitely saw some peak in trends, and we're still seeing them with behaviors that we've not quite seen in those grade levels, but we understand and have compassion for, because we understand they weren't in school and it's going to take time to adjust, and we can, it's just very busy. So from my perspective, but yeah, if you guys can share directly.
So I'm at K-5, so elementary, and definitely what you're saying is we saw those kindergartners and those first graders and second graders coming in where, you know, having issues with even being able to stand in line, or how they're playing on the playground because they didn't get that socialization. And so really looking at every grade level and looking, of course, at those individual students, but really looking at the grade level and realizing the gaps that might have been there in the previous year and a half. And so looking at our second graders who only got, you know, half of kindergarten in the classroom, and now they're back in the school, and what that looks like for them. And so really looking at their needs and approaching it that way. One thing that I mentioned is the Komochi's curriculum that we teach, an SEL curriculum that, for instance, at my school, I've been doing every week with the kindergartners, and things as basic as, you know, using our talking voices, raising our hand, how are we good listeners, things like that, and really helping the teachers to promote that in the classroom and to really be patient when we are teaching it, because we have to keep in mind, of course, you know, not only what we've been through in the past 2 years, but also what our students have been. And it's showing up in the classroom, it's showing up in small group, it's showing up one-to-one. So there are higher referrals for students, higher referrals for family needs as well. And that's where the family liaisons have been tremendously helpful, being able to hand a family off to them, and they're able to really pinpoint what services in Daly City would be best for their needs, and them having more of a vast knowledge of what there is out there, as far as, you know, food services or legal services, whatever it is, rental assistance. So that's also been a really big help too, is being able to meet the specific needs of our families as well.
Thank you. That was helpful. And so I also noticed, and I think you specifically had a very large caseload because you're doing the coverage at MHT. I want to know, how are our counselors taking care of their own mental health? Because I think that just, to me, I couldn't imagine doing 600 children that are going through these transitions. So how are you all coping with this?
Great question. I think that really, Arthur and I both started at the same time, and our first year was during the pandemic. So, you know, we had that normal first few months, and then we hit the pandemic. So it's really been more what we know is during this, you know, this unprecedented time than anything else. But I think that the biggest thing that's been the most helpful for me coming out of the pandemic is, while we were on virtual, as a counseling team, we were meeting weekly. And that was truly a blessing for all of us, I think, because we were able to collaborate, check in on one another, see what each other are doing. I think that our counseling team really takes the mindset of that team approach. And so being able to talk with just the elementary counselors, just the middle counselors, and then all together as well. Being able to touch base with the middle school counselors when a student does come into their office, knowing that we had them a few years prior. So being able to give that history or give tips and tricks that, you know, have worked, or things that we know about the family. So I think and that's something that we've kept up since coming back to in-person, is our collaborative meetings. And also extending those to also PD opportunities, where we bring in those outside services that we've been working with, and we have time to meet with them, and we have time to ask those questions and see how one another are doing. So me professionally, that has been really, really helpful, and something that I've really looked forward to as well, because it gave us that time to really brainstorm and work as a collaborative team. And I think that that shows also in things like having a district-wide core curriculum, things like that, that we're really on the same page. And so that when all of our elementary kids get to middle school, they're all coming from somewhat of the same place. They're getting those same types of lessons as elementary students, to really make it as a whole, not just a whole school approach, but a whole district approach as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last, okay. So can you tell me one accomplishment that you're the most proud of?
Well, I can't really take credit for the Woodrow Wilson Food Bank because I didn't start it, but it is something that helped a lot of families through the pandemic. And it's something that I have been a part of in terms of volunteering my time. That is operated by wonderful teachers and staff at Woodrow on the second Saturday of each month, and we have a fun time doing it. So at this point, it is now well organized. At the beginning of the pandemic, it definitely wasn't, and it took some time to get to where we are. But I think that's something I can speak to in terms of an accomplishment that we have so far.
Okay, that was it.
Cool. I just want to say thanks to you guys presenting as well as the whole team. I know the last 2 years has been a huge ordeal, so I just want to say thanks for that. I was just going to ask, I know, Ms. Martinez, you always talk about sort of some of the work that you guys do in the coming years and such. I was just wondering what you and your team sort of have in mind for like, the coming years in terms of sort of building out the work that you do, but also sort of kind of furthering the work that you do in schools as well as supporting our community.
Like new projects?
Yeah, if you have anything.
Well, we really are hoping to solidify our Tier 1 curriculum at both elementary and middle. So we've had kind of a little bit of some setbacks in adopting the curriculum, so I hope to have that solidified. We're also currently working on district-wide Tier 2 and Tier 3 approaches and strategies. And so currently, right now, we're all launching a Tier 2 intervention with a curriculum and hoping that it shows the results we want to see. But just being in alignment, like the counselors mentioned and I mentioned too, we can't do it without each other. And I feel like that's really helped us navigate through this challenging time and having some common ground. So those are a couple of things. I hope to sustain what's currently in place, if not grow, because mental health needs aren't going to go away. They're just going to continue to increase. And we know how important these roles are. So that's, something that I hope to sustain or grow in the coming years. Other than that, any other shares that we're looking forward to? We're doing a lot. So I always tell you guys, please come visit or come meet with us. There's so much that we don't share. We cut those slides. We cut like 15 slides out. So there's so much. This is a slice, right? There's so many more aspects of the department and what we coordinate together and, through Ed Services. So you're welcome to attend. The counselors are open to you guys coming, and you can shadow them if you'd like and just to see what it's like. Of course, appropriate settings, right? But yeah, thank you for asking such great questions. And, we definitely appreciate the support that you provide to us.
I feel like I want to give a round of applause, but I'm going to hold myself back. I just really want to echo, we really appreciate what you're doing. We could not do it without you. And together we're better. So just thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Well, thanks so much. Next item on tonight's agenda is item 9C, resolution number 22-03-09, authorized signatures. The administration recommends that the board adopt resolution number 22-03-09, authorizing signatories for the Jefferson Elementary School District. Mr. Lord, would you be able to just kind of give a quick overview of this?
Good evening. Just a quick rundown. Every year we, whenever we always reauthorize signatures for people in our staff to sign on behalf of district business. One of the new signatures that's going to be on there is Denise Lacroix, the new director of fiscal services, and it's been a blessing to have her in the business department. So yeah, this is an annual thing, recurring every year, and it's for us to sign off on things like accounts payable, payroll, being able to sign a contract, and just the everyday business of Jefferson Elementary School District.
Cool. Thank you. Any questions or comments from board members? If not, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I move that we approve the resolution 220309 for authorized signatories.
Second.
There's a first and second. May I please get a roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye. That was unanimous. So next item is item 9I, fiscal year 2020, 2021, annual financial audit reports for the year ended June 30th, 2021. Ahmad Garabia, audit partner with Eid Bailey, will be in attendance to summarize the results of the 2020, 2021 annual financial audit of the district. The administration recommends acceptance and approval of the audited annual financial reports for the fiscal year 2020, 2021 ended June 30th, 2021, as submitted by the auditing firm. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. This is the annual financial report for the district. We are the independent auditors of the district, external auditors of the district. The scope of the audit is to ensure that the financial statements are fairly stated. It is a process that begins at the beginning of the year. We typically split the audit into 3 phases. The interim phase, which is a phase in which we look at the controls. We take a look at the manner that you process receipts, disbursements, payroll. We'd like to see a review process there and segregation with respect to the internal controls. We wait for management to close the books. And that's the second phase in which it is a confirmation process of the amounts that are reported on the financial statements. We confirm your state revenues, your LCFF, your cash balances, whatever is reported on these financial statements. And at the end, we issue an opinion on the financial statements of the district, on the fair presentation of the financial statements. These financial statements are basically an affirmation of the financial information that was presented to you previously by management. We come in after the fact. It is a confirmation process, as I have mentioned before. And I am pleased to let you know that we had no findings and we issued a clean opinion. Management has been very helpful in providing us with the information that we needed to complete the audit, and we had no exceptions. I believe on the agenda item are the 2 bond measures as well. Is that a separate item or should we present it?
They're all together.
All together. Concurrently with the audit of the district's financial statements, you are required by Proposition 39 to undergo an audit with respect to your bond measures. It's effectively a 2-phase audit or 2 different types of audits. One is a financial audit, meaning that the sources of the bonds had been segregated from the district. They have been properly accounted for. And again, we confirm the receipts, confirm your proceeds from the bonds, your interest, your cash balances. And then the second component to that audit is what they call a performance audit in accordance with Proposition 39. Effectively, it is a compliance audit. We test the expenses to make sure that they are in compliance with what the voters had voted on, with what was stated in the ballot language. We sit with your project managers and we request invoices and we ensure that these expenditures are in conformance with what the ballot language had dictated that these expenses, these funds are to be expended on. And again, we issued a clean opinion. We had no exceptions with respect to those 2 measures. And with that, I'll be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Cool. Thank you for the presentation. It's nice to see you again as usual every year.
Good to see you.
I realize this is an action item, so we have to take action on this item.
I just want to make a comment. I'm really glad we had no findings because that is, I think imperative for us moving forward. So thank you again for the hard work you put there. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020, 2021 annual financial audit reports for year ended June 30th, 2021.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. Thank you again, Mr. Garbia. Next item is item 9J, fiscal year 2021-2022 second interim budget review. Michael Loro, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, will present highlights of the 2021-2022 second interim report, financial report for the period ended January 30th, 2022. The administration recommends that the Board of Education, A, review the second interim, B, approve the filing of positive certification of financial condition, and C, approve the revision to the working budget to correspond with the projected year totals. Mr. Loro.
Good evening. So, as you know, in the cycle of school business, we usually start out with the budget development, the budget approval, the first interim, which shows us up to date through October 31st, and now is the second interim, which is through January 31st. This is our second interim. This is our multi-year projection, where we'll be sending to San Mateo County Office of Education, and they'll be sending it to California Department of Education. This also includes an additional out year. We're only required to present the next following fiscal years, 2 of them, on the multi-year projection, but we always do 3, just as due diligence. Next slide. So some of the major changes from the first interim report that was in December 2021 till now, there was a net decrease of revenues in the general fund. That's mainly because of a contribution increase to the routine restricted maintenance account, and also an additional contribution to our after-school program. Another thing that I'd like to bring up is that we did have some site donations for outdoor ed. Some of the increases in expenditures were mostly driven by the board-approved $1.34 million deposit into the health and benefits reserve. So that's accounted for. We did net that off of reducing our expenditures in vacant positions. However, that's positions of a little over $500,000, another $120,000 in statutory benefits. But yes, most of the changes in the expenditures were due to that transfer into Fund 17 to safeguard the health increases that we're expected to have. Next slide. This usually isn't a slide that Ms. Kessler used to present, but I'd like to make note of it. We did increase revenues of just over $2 million. That's mainly due to the recognition of the ESSER II funds that we received. Some other funds state funds were the TUBE grant, which is tobacco use and prevention, a small ACES increase of funding, and as well as an early inclusive education grant. So when it comes to restricted funds, we usually like to net out revenues and expenditures. So a majority of, or the lion's share of these expenditures are going towards certificated salaries and benefits, the statutory benefits. That is mainly driven by the health and safety stipend that was given per FTE. That was approved by the board, $3,000 per FTE. So yeah, just a recognition of where that funding came from and the recognition of the revenues that we're getting through these learning loss mitigation funds. Next slide. So we're starting to come up on Trustee Ku's favorite slide on the presentation. So some of the main points here are the assumptions on our multi-year projection. These predictions are the same ones that I had presented in the January proposal, governor's budget. The COLA is the same 5.33%, and it kind of tears off in the out years. And also the unduplicated pupil percentage, we lose slightly amount in the out years, but we're projecting it to be flat. And we will be losing this year we have declining ADA protection on our LCFF funding. However, in the out years, This year included, we are losing enrollment and we're losing average daily attendance, but we are projecting it to be flat in the out years. From fiscal year 2021 to 21-22, we lost approximately 498 students in enrollment, which equates to a loss of $5.8 million in our LCFF funding. Next slide. So here's our updated multi-year projection. If you guys can remember, or from first interim, we had a small surplus, but you could see at second interim, we have a negative $518,000. So we would be slightly deficit spending, mostly due to the transfer into Fund 17 for the health and benefits reserve. I do want to make note that if we're projecting enrollment to be flat from where we are now, if we go back in budget development last year in the summer, we were expecting to lose students, but then we lost even more students than we thought we were going to lose. It's very hard to predict how many students we can lose year to year. So we try to stay with the flat enrollment going out and then see where the cards fall, right? I do also want to make note that every year, school sites, like all the different school sites, they have a discretionary budget and they roll over year to year. In some cases, school sites don't spend all the money that was given to them to spend on their students. So some of those buckets of money roll over 100%. Other buckets, they only roll over 15% of their allocation. So this deficit spending of $518,000 could change to be a positive number, just depending on, we budget as if the school sites are going to spend all the money that's given to them. However, some school sites like to save and roll that into the next year to cover for additional counselors or an additional targeted teacher for struggling students. Those are just things I want to recognize when we look at this slide. Next slide. And here's the visual year over year. This is similar to what we were looking at during the governor's budget. We're projecting to deficit spend mainly because of the loss of enrollment and the loss of average daily attendance, which equates to loss of LCFF revenue. Year over year, we start to slightly eat away at our fund balance. Next slide. Final things to consider while looking at that slide, that does include step and column increases. So when a teacher's in their 5th year and they're going to the 6th year, they get a raise depending on the salary schedule. This does not include any percentage raises that we're giving to staff. Like I said, it assumes flat enrollment, and it also assumes a flat unduplicated pupil percentage. We're going to try as hard as we can with the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program to have students fill that alternative income form out to make sure that we're not missing any students that we could potentially be losing in an unduplicated percentage, which helps our funding. So hopefully we can try to push that message out as best we can to get those forms in. This does not include our federal ESSER 3 funds in the next 2 years. We haven't included the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. You guys have seen both these plans in the fall. This also, it includes staff reductions due to our declining enrollment in the out years. And this does not include any governor proposed ADA LCFF funding changes. So if you guys can recall in the governor's proposal, he had a 3-year average of ADA, which can help us out. And there's also other proposals out there that would match to enrollment. But we're going to wait and see what they're going to do in Sacramento. And when the May revision comes out, we'll get like a better look at what we're going to be getting for our revenues in the out years. Next year, but in the out years as well. And we don't It does not include also any increased Fund 13 contributions. So for food services, as we push out and continue to push out free meals twice a day to all students, that does not include any, if we start to lose revenues because of unprecedented scenarios, or if the costs just keep going up and the revenues that we currently are at can't cover completely. Next slide. So after first interim, second interim, we always have a certification of financial condition. I'm recommending that we have a positive certification because we can meet this year's financial obligations as well as the next, the out 3 years, the next 2 years, but the additional third year we also meet as well. Next slide. Do you guys have any questions?
Cool, thank you. Any questions? No. Thank you, Mr. Laura. I actually have a quick question. Could you? Actually, never mind. You answered the question, actually. It was regarding the governor's ADA proposal, I realize now, but
yeah.
since that's not in place yet, we don't know anything until pretty much the May.
I think it's very hopeful. I was talking to Superintendent Vidalis and just in a brainstorming kind of session, and I think that when you have some of the biggest school districts in California, like LAUSD, Los Angeles Unified School District, on the amount of students that they're losing and the amount of funding that they're losing for the amount of students that they're serving. And yeah, it's a lot of most of the districts in California are LCFF funded, and it's impacting, you know, like 95% of public schools in California. So we'll see what's going to happen. Hope isn't a good plan to have, but with the state's revenues being at the levels that they're at, I'm sure there's going to be something that's going to have to change. I think it's to have to fund paying for 500 students when you're only getting revenue for 95% of them. It's kind of hard to provide all of the support and the services that students need coming out of a global pandemic for the last 2 years. So we'll see. But thank you.
So I actually realized what the question. Could you go back 2 slides by chance? There was a mention about it doesn't consider flat enrollment, or it considers flat enrollment. I guess what happens if enrollment keeps going further down?
So when projecting out enrollment, what some of the negative things that can come out of it is we can overproject enrollment going down. And in over projecting enrollment going down, we could be saying, oh, we're losing even more money than we're anticipating. And then it comes out that we don't lose as much money, right? So it's easier for us to project outward as a flat enrollment to have the consistency and continuity than it is to just come in and say, all right, we're going to lose another 10% next year. And, you know, let's say we only lose another 2%, right? Then we're making actions to cut even more when we really don't have to, when we really shouldn't have, right? So I think that's being too conservative. We do definitely want to be conservative as much as we can to safeguard the fiscal health and solvency of the district, but I don't think that we want to overproject, right?
I think, Mr. Ali, you'll remember this term, the strategic use of reserve funds. This is something that the board coined 10 years ago or so. Instead of saying we're gonna spend down our reserves, to think about it as strategically using them to respond to situations like a declining enrollment. So we would hope that we would stay flat. We'd hope that we would grow. But we do have our reserves to be able to respond to that drop if we need to use them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? So I know that this item is also an action item. I want to hear a motion on the items required to approve tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lauro. I'd like to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 second interim budget review.
Mr. Lauer, do you need them to approve the bullets B and C in the agenda? The filing of positive certification as well as the adjustments to the budget? Or accepting the second interim, is that sufficient?
Accepting the second interim is sufficient.
Okay, so there's a first. Is there a second? Oh,
Positive certification.
The second interim does conclude that it is a positive certification, so you accepting the second interim includes that.
Okay. Second.
First and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Thanks again, Mr. Lauro.
Welcome.
Next item is item 10A, Certificate of Retirement 2021-2022. The administration recommends approval of the retirement request for Mary Hagan, third grade teacher at Thomas Edison, effective June 11th, 2022. Ms. Hagan has been employed by the district since September 4th, 1992. The administration also requests an appropriate resolution be prepared commending Ms. Hagan for years of service with the district. Mr. Valenti.
Yeah, just a couple of words. We are fortunate enough to have two Hagans in our district, one, of course, behind me, too. Right? And of course, Miss Hagan over at Thomas Edison, and she's finishing up her 30th year here with our district. And I just want to say thank you for all of her service. She's an excellent teacher, an excellent person, and we're going to miss having her here working with us. I'm sure she'll come back afterwards like they usually do after their 6 months. So I would recommend that the board accept this request to retire.
Cool, thank you. Any questions or comments from board members?
Thank you, Ms. Hagan, for 30 years of service. I can make a motion to approve the recommendation to approve the retirement request of Ms. Hagan, third grade teacher, effective June 11th of 2022.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous, and congratulations, Hagan, and thanks for your service with our district as well. So the next item is item 12. Persons wishing to address the board on unagendized or closed session items. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda or an item addressed in closed session. Maximum time allowed for any speaker is 2 minutes. Are there any speakers?
We do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, cool. Next item is item 13, governance team member comments, reports, and board meeting reflection. Ms. Jordan?
I just wanted to thank all the speakers here tonight. It was a very insightful and informative meeting. To our families out there and our students, I know the news and everything is really heavy and hard right now, and so I just would say take care of yourselves and your families. If possible, stay away from, the news reports, because it's unfortunately very negative and appalling, and, hold on to your loved ones. Now more than ever, we just need peace and togetherness, especially since we're still technically wearing masks and going and making sure that we're, safe. So again, just thank you for being here tonight and listening. And again, just take care of yourselves.
I just wanted to also thank the counselors for coming out tonight, and Ms. Martinez and just reiterate the fact that it's important that we take care of each other and support all the mental health needs of the students and the staff, faculty, support people.
Same here. I realize, I think now more than ever, mental health is at the forefront of just kind of even in the schools and in our everyday life. So just want to make sure everybody just takes the time to sort of take a break if they need to and just relax and take a break. Next item is item 14, closed session. Convening to closed session. Take a 5-minute recess and get back at 8:25 p.m. Thanks so much for attending tonight.